Hi, good evening. Welcome. My name is Jeff Andrews with Business of Child Care. As we get started here, we let folks join the room. Happy to be here on behalf of a great team in Jackson County that's been working on child care for some time now. And the purpose of tonight is to introduce some ideas and some information that the team have been working on, give an update on all of our activity over the past year, and more importantly than anything, extend the invitation for those who are able to join us here live or in a follow-up replay. Extend the invitation to learn more and join the effort as the team continues to move things forward for childcare. The webinar format does allow a Q&A a component. You should be able to, down on the bottom bar, find a Q&A type symbol and offer any questions. The chat function doesn't work as well in the webinar. And either way, as you participate in this evening, if we're unable to answer a question or somehow miss it, I'll make sure to provide follow-up information after the session to ensure that we can connect with you individually. Really exciting work that myself, our team have felt really proud to be a part of. Tiffany Henry, a long list of others involved, really going back to several years ago in talking about the challenges for childcare. And as I share some slides here in just a moment here, helps us start to ground ourselves in understanding all the work that's been done leading up to this moment tonight. And it really started long before the formal work began, but through last year. Matter of fact, take a moment to extend hopes that all that have joined us from the area have been able to recover from the effects of Helene. As a Midwestern guy, very interesting experience as we wrapped up our work right before to be a part of, and certainly the aftermath, as a few people have said in the years since, resilience certainly on display in the community. So it was an interesting element when we think about kind of how we put that plan together, but it really engaged everybody. For those who were part of those conversations, a series of meetings, follow-ups, and other engagements really reinforced the opportunity and the understanding for the need for those sustainable and adaptable solutions. And so the focus plan from the activation, the focus areas that came from the activation plan, in many ways already taking shape. And we'll talk about the big one, number 4, here in a moment. But even the community-centered hub in its beginnings continues to develop such a great dedicated team locally in the county and within the region who continue to participate and work to act upon the elements uncovered as opportunity, continuing to find ways to expand our workforce. For our current operators and those who are seeking care, we know that there is not an abundance of the right people with the background, the education, along with that passion to deliver the work that we need delivered. And then understanding and recognizing that informal care continues to happen in the community. And are there ways to extend some support to those caregivers, oftentimes extended family, as well as introduce licensure pathways for those that maybe lack awareness or for some other reason have not yet put themselves into that realm of licensing. But the big one that we know ultimately always has to happen are targeted investments, right? Targeted dollars, targeted money that unlocks the opportunities for some of these opportunities, initiatives, and other actions to actually take place. And I think the community did a really great job at setting the stage for that and really looking at and considering what are the things that we can take action on now, what are the things that we can focus on. And it really started to take shape last spring. I want to say it's last spring. As the community started to get to that number 4, an opportunity presented itself in Webster to evaluate and look at the possibility of looking at reopening what was, get the name and terminology wrong, but the Webster Area, I think, Development Center, Child Care Center there. So that led us to an exercise to say, how could we do that? How could the county and all of those wanting to be a part of supporting this. How could we reopen that center in a way that maybe presented a more supported and sustainable pathway? So a number of meetings held. We've run operating models. We've looked at feasibility of different options, building use, and things like that. Appreciate the anonymous attendee, it's the Webster Enterprises Child Care Center. Appreciate the clarification there. So that became aligned with then community input and priorities, and not just from a parent and family perspective, but also engaging with our existing operators, our existing providers, and really getting to a place of understanding how does this work in the overall ecosystem. A really important and thoughtful step, I would suggest, by the local community. And while today it is still confirmed as a viable solution, some renovations are ongoing, some roof and some other improvements. The question was raised, is this our best path forward at this moment? And while no decisions have been made, and it's important for me to highlight this entire evening is about further exploration by this dedicated team of leaders in the community, the question was posed, is this our best opportunity in the moment? And when I talked about just a moment ago, feedback from all realms of the community, existing operators, those that are supporting the field, highlighted continued challenge that we face not just here in North Carolina, but around the country. And that is that idea of that abundance of trained and certified and desired staff are not abundant. And so I thought it was very thoughtful of Tiffany and the team to really take a moment and consider, if we support opening a center in one form or another. To be clear, the county is not running a center, but maybe creating the space in which to do that. Are we compounding the problem for our existing operators, our existing providers that are so critical, right, and vital to our community? And so that decision, that thought process led to some further examination and some further, I might say, ideation. I think that's a word, to think about maybe what else might we do. And some of our work at Business of Child Care, dating back several years ago in North Carolina, was focused on Yadkin County. A great county right out in the center of the state there. I've had a chance to visit numerous times over the last several years. And that concept was really the origin attempt at a concept we coined or call the Early Ed Flexplex, a fully new construction build that creates shared space under one roof for, in this instance there, up to 6 individual, what we might otherwise term as family child care spaces. And that effort, with great collaboration from regional officials, even state officials, over a several-year process, opened the door for a concept that more generically called, in this case, hosted spaces. So it's the idea of thinking about, for some of us that might be in the field or want to be in the field, we're seeing more and more of this for those coming out of school who participated in the Career Pathways program, a desire to, in essence, have a Main Street childcare business, right? A business that isn't in their home, but doesn't require the lift or the investment or the wherewithal and know-how to operate a childcare center, which with your great operators, talking to any of them will tell you it's not an easy walk. And so this becomes an opportunity to maybe unlock opportunities to further increase our capacity, further increase the availability of care, but do it in a different way, in a way that allows us to better meet some unmet needs, better allows us to support lifting up what in essence are childcare business entrepreneurs, not in their home, not in a $3 million center, but in a space with other providers to coexist in. So similar to some of the shared work arrangements and spaces we see, similar to the hair salon model. You can tell I don't participate, but I know many who do, where we share a chair. We not share. We have a chair. We have a booth, so to speak, within that larger space, but it's ours, and we run our program. We run our business independently licensed, just within a shared space that provides an opportunity to not be in your home or not be by yourself or not necessarily be constrained to what maybe the limitations of your space are. So when we look at that at a broad level, the local team wanted to begin exploring that. And that's really the benefit of tonight's session, is to more broadly introduce the concept, more broadly introduce what it might mean there locally in the Webster space. And so at the end of the day, as I mentioned, small license programs in shared facilities, single owner operators. So we're thinking about, in the more traditional sense, family child care, but not in somebody's home, not where they live. And it also, I think, helps us build on some of the things that we uncovered during that work, right? Staffing is one thing, but even the one size fits all center approach has its own constraints. Even as we look across the state of North Carolina, we have centers that are closing, not because of great operators or on the flip side, poor operators, but often just because at the end of the day, that's such a thin margin of success, a thin margin for the win, that any kind of detour can have devastating effects. In this scenario here, and we'll talk a little bit more specifically about the Webster building, we're going to diversify not only the opportunity to serve more unmet needs, but also diversify a one operator, one building approach that is dependent on a singular operator. In this case, and over time, you will see operators come and go, but the space remains the same. Space remains a county asset that enables and unlocks the opportunity for those that are otherwise constrained by the traditional barriers we see, like I said, home ownership, appropriate space and setting, and all of the other elements. For those of you who aren't familiar with the building, and again, we won't make judgments in these early stages on graphic design efforts, but what you see on the left here is what was the most recent floor plan and layout of the building in the center. And so a traditional center, infant room, 1-year-old, all of the rooms that you would expect to see. In the case of a hosted space perspective, which actually this picture is opposite here, you create in these spaces now 4 individual units with exterior entry and exit, with their own plumbing, with their own elements, that operate, like I said before, as their own individual rented space, providing licensed childcare, but now on the scale of a family or small group type license. So you can see in this particular case, there then also become opportunities for shared common area. The playground and outdoor area on a schedule is able to be leveraged by all 4 programs. And in some cases, as you can see in the kind of beginning wireframe, you may even have a space where maybe some traveling therapists are able to deliver care to children in some of these programs. The idea is that we co-locate, which also allows us to co-focus effort supports from all the agencies and partners in the community that now have the ability to work with for additional providers in this type of environment. So the general way that these types of arrangements work, and again, this is all about information, is that the county, as the property owner, continues with the normal responsibilities any property owner has. And as you can see, almost by the breakdown of this, it becomes a landlord-tenant relationship at its core legal form. What makes these opportunities special, as I mentioned before, is all the wraparound and inputs that already exist in a structured and intentional way. But for the purposes of understanding the kind of support of the building, how it's maintained, there's a shared responsibility. And like any renter, commercial or otherwise, those operators, generally in most of these cases, are responsible for utilities, responsible for everything that happens within their space, and certainly then managing normal operating costs. So the real distinction here is that we're shifting the venue from somebody's home where they're already paying rent or a mortgage, they're already paying utilities, they're doing the things that keep that space in the right condition. We're just shifting that model now to a completely isolated space, free of hazards, free of pets, free of TVs, free of the things that we naturally find in our home environment. So it becomes a hybrid in some ways, you can probably see as you look at this. The biggest piece that Jackson County team is exploring and certainly want to share again as a framework that we're applying to projects like this and others is how we make it special, right? It's one thing to have a space, it's one thing to sign a lease, it's another to start and sustain and grow a successful program. And the whole purpose of the work that the local team has been doing is to say, how can we leverage all of our existing great partners, great resources, and add even an extra layer of support that in many ways is about even higher probability of success and sustainability. So in many of these programs, and certainly under advisement here and played by different partners, right? Business of Childcare is, you will never find me in a classroom. You won't find most of our team in the classroom, just as much as you won't see us doing licensing. But we know and we leverage resources, people, and partners to answer questions. And so some of the roles and things that I'm sharing here are ones that Business of Childcare provides to communities and projects as needed, but often can be filled in by existing resources, existing people. Another way that these types of projects really become a whole community effort rather than a hope that the selected operator or an operator on their own is able to find that recipe for success, which often is, for those in the field, very complex and very challenging at times. So we think about the elements that make success. It's really a big part of it is a startup advisor, somebody who is really just dedicated to each of those 4 operators that get selected through a process to ensure they're connected to the right people, to the right resources, that they have a structured pathway to get onboarded and started, and then that coaching, situational, most important, meaning when something comes up, there's somebody there to help answer and process and work that operator through. It's a big element of success that we see in many cases already deployed in some form in different communities. Here it becomes even more of a central point of opportunity to support that new operator. The other piece on the operator side is really a lot of elements, and these are some examples of ways in which the business side is accounted for, right? One of the biggest challenges is not necessarily ever the passion for children or a great development program or all the activities and things that we hear about on a regular basis, is about the understanding of how all of those things work, right? The business case, the program design, how the program design and the business case might interact, how to make sure that as you set yourself up outside of the basics, how do you make sure that you're aligned to licensing, you're aligned to quality, you're aligned to all the things that make our program successful, not just for the families and children, but for the very operators that we're talking about tonight. I think that's one thing that I've taken away more than anything is a real shared desire for the community, that it not just be a community win, but also a way to help continue elevating the professionals doing the work, whether in a center, whether as a program operator in somebody's home or in a case like Hosted Spaces. How do we change that narrative here in Jackson County? And I think that's a great testament to everybody that's working about. And when we think about those business foundations, it's more than getting a business bank account set up, right? It's getting yourself set up as a legal entity, just like every other small business does. It's setting up those policies and those procedures and making sure that, while we may not help you build your family handbook, that you've got it accounted for and that you're connecting with a local professional who's able to support doing that, basically helping operators, excuse me, build their team of advisors, which every business has, formally or informally. We take it a step further and really help make sure that's set up. And a big part of this building, this space, the renovations that are happening, is really helping operators in partnership design those spaces, set those spaces up in accordance with best practices, with quality standards. So the assumption becomes that this becomes somewhat of a flagship opportunity to demonstrate, both for others somewhere else as well as those locally, here's the best way to run a small childcare business, be successful, get the outcomes that you want for those children with your program, and be a supported member of our business community, right? That's the big picture here, is that we're changing a little bit of the narrative. And certainly that starts with those business foundations. The other element that we often see in a hosted spaces arrangement, no different here under consideration, is beyond the excitement. And trust me, it's always a fun event, the grand opening, the balloons, the families and the operators and everybody coming together to celebrate, is how do we ensure in some ways the best chance for success is in our hosted spaces programs, we recommend a first year of check-in support. Now, again, existing agencies, offerings, and programs many times can play that role. But in our case, it's really focusing and looking at it even from an operating lens. Right, when the first enrollment tuition payments start coming in, or and you've got a bunch, but one was off, or there's a family who's already starting to pick up late, or whatever the long list of things are that we sometimes run into in that first few months, our approach is in those monthly check-ins, we're giving real-time support, real-time kind of structure, advice, and guidance to the operator on how to handle those things. Rather than trying to teach it all and learn it all and remember it all, we say, let's not do that. Let's focus almost this work in phases. So early stabilization, really making sure the wheels are running. We're on the right compass reading for where we're trying to get to as an operator. And then as we shift out of those first kind of tenuous months of running a business, because that's what this is, we help work with that operator to really think about what are some more focused areas or domains that you need support with, right? And our experience is from a list of 15 different areas, it's always a different combination. And that's what makes it special, is that the support, again, personalized to each operator in a way that aligns with what they need, rather than just a standard kind of format. And then as you wrap up those last months of that first year, really thinking about how things have been going, helping reconnect with Jackson County leaders and folks working on that, showcasing success even, all comes together through a supported process that has been demonstrated over the last year and a half, brings the whole community together to play a role. So beyond the county leaders, we, like I said, have had our field leaders, we've had business leaders, university leaders at the table, not only in activation planning and some of that work, but all the way through. And it's really exciting to see that play out in a way that is good, right? Is a way that brings visibility and provides us an opportunity to further drive things forward. I want to take a moment, and certainly we know the Q&A is working at the present moment, and invite any further questions around the basic concept. One of the things that I don't have a slide for, but is certainly something that will be available soon, is what we might call an RFQ, a beginning step, meaning for those who are interested and might find this as a pathway for themselves, either personally or somebody they know. There are obviously some desired outcomes, not just from the performance of the program and the spaces that make up that Webster location, but about the qualifications, about the commitment to quality, right? Being a part of the development opportunities, the training opportunities, really setting, as I mentioned before, a space up that takes that off as the burden and provides the opportunity for that laser focus on the profession, the trade, the craft that I say often is such a special one, right? Because again, not all of us are equipped in any form to do the hard work of helping kids develop in a way that's successful. I'd also highlight that from the community's perspective, and as part of a process moving forward, there will also be some focus or desired focus areas of these units. For instance, one unit, and I'm just giving an example of communities broadly, so we don't say one thing or another, but communities in some cases are looking in this example for one unit that might be a bilingual off. One unit that might be more just all preschool, focused on in partnership maybe with a local school district to ensure an identified group of kids can get to day one even more prepared than maybe their current trajectory. Oftentimes mixed age care might even be alignment with a local employer or otherwise. There's a variety of different options, and that'll be some of the next work that the local team embarks on once we get some ideas of interest and and excitement is to now start to formulate as a next step, what might that framework actually look like for Webster, right? And that's much more than just saying, hey, we'd like to have 4 offerings of childcare. It gets into what is it that we'd like to target the operators as far as an earnings outcome, right? What, like I said before, are the alignment to care that we're looking to serve with these, so that we're also in the community is not looking to take anything away from those who are already doing the work. And so part of the neat kind of combination partnership here is that we can align it to those needs that are most needed and most aligned, so that we find a win for everybody. We find a win for sometimes an operator who wants to do childcare, but maybe doesn't know everything about business. And maybe if you're on as a prospective provider, that rings true. But you're great at what you do. I just met a young woman here in Minnesota, 4-year degree, lives in a town where there isn't a center, didn't own a home. Long story short, she's doing her craft because somebody in town had a second home, I guess, just sitting there. And she's now doing that, loving life, making a good outcome for herself, and most importantly, serving, in her case, 9 families in this kind of more rural community that otherwise had an adult sitting at home with the lack of available care. So all sorts of creativity. I think it's just another way that we start to look at this approach and these opportunities a little bit differently. I've got a few questions I've seen pop up in the Q&A. I appreciate that. So the one question around the space is licensed individually per room. Exactly, right? So what we're doing is not having 4 sub-licenses. You're not working on behalf of Jackson County. You would be, in this case, Jeff Andrews Child Care. Sounds just awful by itself. But you would go through the licensing process. And again, it's one of those supports that we don't do the licensing, but us or a local partner or the licensing agency themselves help navigate through these efforts. And that's a big piece of this, right? Getting some interested, getting some understanding of possibility of excitement triggers the next step, which is really more specifically getting into the licensing specificities for this space, the considerations there, building out then the aligned business cases and ensuring that we've got success set up. That's the other piece of this, is that as we build the beginning stages, we run the business models for all 4 units based on the desired use case. I had one example right now we're working with in South Dakota. They're focused on 2 units that would support or extend services for the local school district for what here they locally call SPED, meaning special ed, early ed. Well, the thing is, you can only have 5. Their model of delivery was 5 kids. And anybody that's been in childcare knows 5 kids and 1 operator won't pay the bills. And so they now, though, at least have visibility on what would the subsidy need to be between the cost of care that's appropriate for the family and being mindful of the provider outcomes. And so now they're raising money from other sources to, in essence, create the gap coverage for the delivery of that much needed and critical care. So overall, individually licensed. And it leads to the next question from Katie Parker. Appreciate this. Shared spaces, outdoor, things like that. That is absolutely true. And again, aligned with licensing, aligned with regulations, outdoor space. In some cases, we have an indoor muscle room that's a shared resource. They're all built on a schedule. At the end of the day, we can't be all commingling, right? We can't walk in there someday and have kids from unit 1 and unit 3, and unit 3's over here and 4's out on the. No. That's why they even have their own exterior entrances and exits, as we treat the playground almost like a community playground. And yet, in this case, we just have a schedule. And the way more and more of these programs that are developing do is that schedule might shift every quarter. So that we don't necessarily always have to go to the playground at 10 a.m. So this really almost a co-op of a feeling in some ways, where the 4 operators in partnership with the site operator coordinate those elements in a way that's workable for everybody, and still maintains integrity of licensing, health, and safety standards that are so important no matter what setting you're in. So hopefully, Katie, that helps with that. When we think about the shared benefits, certainly there are those instances, usually more of the shared service models. lift up again to what might be that community hub I talked about. So at a county level, not just even for this building, we're looking at what our insurance benefits all providers might be able to benefit from, or buying arrangements. That's another one where as a collective, we're buying at a better rate than we were buying on ourselves. And I think that's the opportunity, something like hosted spaces. I know there's further efforts underway to understand ways to continue supporting existing providers, continuing moving forward on those elements. It's the idea that collectively, all of us in the whole community get a chance in the way that's appropriate for us to be a part of efforts like this, efforts to support our existing and efforts in the future. If you're interested in, it looks like, how do we stay informed about the path forward for this PACE? Should we be interested? I think I already okayed this with Tiffany, and again, we'll follow up with some contact information, but Tiffany Henry, Jackson County Economic Development at the moment. You may even just reach out, introduce yourself, and she'll kind of maintain the working list. This is an effort that isn't a 3-year vision. This is something rather quickly the community group is looking at moving forward in one way or the other. So watch for the email. Otherwise, if you can find Tiffany's email, I encourage you to reach out and just introduce yourself that way. The other piece here is the kitchens. So a good question from Kelly. The way these units are put together is they become self-contained. Each unit has their own bathroom. Each unit has their own kitchenette. Some of these arrangements leverage, for instance, the local senior center is in the parking lot, and so their kitchen ends up, in essence, catering meals. We have school districts that do similarly. I've even had the local pizza joint on Main Street run their lunch shift in addition, and they send out some meals and such that align with food standards and all of that. So every unit is actually outfitted to in some ways mimic most of the features we would find in our own homes, yet in a way that is aligned with this type of space use. So that's how those efforts are handled. And again, we are working through just the early exploration right now. So no decisions have been made. Everybody who is here today, we invite you to, whether you want to be a prospective operator or just be a part of the effort, reach out to Tiffany Henry or follow up on the information we'll send out tomorrow for those who are able to attend. And I appreciate the smiley face from Katie. Could some of the Helene Relief Fund support if this fills gaps? I don't have an understanding enough of how that may or may not work, but I would imagine when we lift this again, like we started, childcare up from just being a family and child issue, we're even seeing economic development funds in different states being applied because of the understanding that it unlocks workforce, it unlocks opportunities for people to do things. And in your scenario, I think as you're probably describing, we have operators who have been closed. And so if this helps build new capacity, maybe some of those funds would be available. And one of the things that the group will do soon is define kind of the final draft plan. And the beauty of having a final draft plan is not only for those of you who are interested like you are tonight, those in the broader community, but for funders and others who might be a part of something interesting like this. It gives them a definition of what we're trying to do as a function, but also what's that outcome. And the way I look at it is that even if we had 8 kids, 6 kids per unit, 24, 36, whatever the multiple is of opportunities for kids to be in a place that's great for them, 4 places for operators who might otherwise be sidelined because the conditions aren't right for them. And most importantly, that 24, 36 number of adults who are able to rejoin our workforce, rejoin and pursue the careers they might have on hold. There's lots of wins for everybody in a situation like this. And so certainly an opportunity for everybody to be a part of it. The licensing require environmental health sanitation. They generally go through all the normal inspections and such that any commercial space would go through. And certainly in these types of arrangements, often some of the hybrid play out becomes things like what you would expect in a center. Even though this isn't meeting the true definition, you would still probably be looking into that. And again, the team's already been in touch with a number of potential contributing agencies for approvals or otherwise to just kind of set the stage, set the foundation of getting a conversation going to do that. And then making sure that we're understanding that the commitment here ultimately is about building new slots. Right. And so the intention, and I hope you've picked up on, is always with something exciting and new, there can be a thought of, well, what about what everybody's been doing it? And I think that's the big piece that I've taken away from all the conversations is this is not about taking away from anybody. Matter of fact, in some ways, new capacity of existing operators has identified would take some burden of stress off. The countless hours of calls inbound from people, sometimes the same person every week, and continuing to give the same answer is a burden as well for our existing providers. So all in all, this is really just another way to think about expanding opportunities for everybody who wins. And certainly appreciate you taking the time today. I'm certain I probably didn't answer all of the questions that one might be able to answer or talk about, and that's okay too. That's where the invite to be a part of the conversation. You'll have that information to act upon. We invite you to do that, even if it's just to be on the mailing list. We really want to and hope that you'll take away from this that opportunity, as well as letting others know about the opportunity. This recording will be available for those in the future who weren't able to make tonight. So again, another opportunity to make sure you share the information and more than anything, be a part of further inputs on making this special for Jackson County and that particular space. I don't see any more questions coming across tonight, which I hope that means people feeling a little bit more confident about just the idea of hosted spaces, the opportunity for Jackson County, and really the opportunity to do something a little bit different, but still get some great outcomes for kids and everybody else involved. Invite you again, reach out to Tiffany Henry. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we look forward to communicating updates and details as they come available in the next weeks. And appreciate your interest. Have a great night.